Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another set of videos in which we continue to talk about the human resource module of finance and operation. So, one of my videos that I had actually released mentioned that the HR standalone module will be integrated or brought back into the finance and operation infrastructure, and now it has. So, you no longer can request or get a license for a standalone HR module. And I think it's a good decision made by Microsoft just because the HR standalone module did not have the capabilities to customize itself. So it was sort of like a hard coding, just like a lot of other cloud solutions that are out there. You cannot actually customize the solution. And for that reason, I believe Microsoft decided to bring that HR module back into its F&O infrastructure because you can actually customize the solution. No organization is, same as any other one. So they are very unique in their processes. And for HR, for instance, if you are working on a union organization, you will have a very different set of processes to follow, different set of criteria to follow when you're assigning compensation or even you're promoting those individuals to in your position. So all of those things cannot be captured by one cloud solution. And in this case, when we talk about the human resources, it's a very generic module. And the reason it's been brought back into the infrastructure is so we can customize it and make it unique to the organization itself that we're implementing. So let's get right into exactly what the changes are that has happened between the standalone module and the actual infrastructure, the merger infrastructure of HR. So the first thing that I want to get into is the actual workspaces. So the first workspace, which is people, is actually somewhat the same, you could say. So I have seen this in the standalone module, but in a different layout. So in this case, it's considered as a workspace, but ideally, in the standalone module, it would be something like a first page or home page that you would see when you log in. So in this case, I simply have a list of employees who I am reporting to. So I have assigned myself Andrew. So I am Andrew in this case, in this environment, and I am reporting to Kim and eventually Emma, and then all the way up to the top to Charlie. So Charlie is the one who sits on the top of the hierarchy, and you see the hierarchy down below. If somebody else was also reporting to me, then I would simply be, I would have other people below me, and then the hierarchy would be established accordingly. So this basically is a workspace that tells you that, okay, this is instead of going into the position hierarchy, for instance, or organizational hierarchy, you can go in here and then know exactly who you're reporting to and who's reporting to you. And within this workspace, there's a lot more information like tests, for instance. So these are the tests that you might have completed, like blood work, for instance. So if your organization requires you to have a blood work and they want to keep a record of it, this is where it will show up. Your date of birth is here. Some of the features that we'll talk about that weren't in the standalone module in the employee record, for instance, we will get to see that as well. Identification numbers are very intuitive. Either in Canada, for instance, you have a social insurance number, so you put that in there, or driver's license, anything to identify you, even a passport would work. Really depends on your requirements and the emergency contacts and certifications, what kind of a certification you have. So in this case, if you are certified for, Azure, then sure, you can put that in there. And everybody in the organization, or at least on the HR team, would know that there is somebody who actually has a relevant certification who can help us with the Azure related inquiries. If you want to go a bit more into the details of it, we won't talk about the checklist. That's something else, which is like a task management, which is also brought into the infrastructure. So it was available in the standalone module, and it is available in the F&O module, F&O infrastructure of HR module. So nothing has changed there. If you want to assign a position or change a position, all of these can be done in a manager self-service workspace as well. So we don't necessarily have to continue to come here to perform these tasks. As an HR manager who actually has access to the whole HR module. You don't even need to go to the manager of self-service workspace, for instance. You just simply go to a list of employees and conduct your activity there. So it's a lot easier. So there's multiple ways to actually do different tasks. Leave of absence is a new module that was just released, and there isn't much of a comparison between the two because it was simply brought into the infrastructure. We'll talk a little bit about that leave of absence module as well. But in our case, the only thing you would need to know is whatever was in the standalone has been brought back into the F&O infrastructure. So nothing has been lost. And one minor problem, it's not a minor problem, but one of the things that you need to worry about when you're implementing this is the payroll. So leave of absence, for instance, you need to have a third-party payroll module or payroll provider in which you can integrate the leave of absences, because this is a sort of like a standalone module. It does not integrate within the time of attendance module down here, as you could see, or the payroll module that's built in. Microsoft even advises their team and their partners that payroll module should be a third party and you should integrate it. So don't use the payroll module here because it's all obviously getting deprecated as well, and it's not as enhanced as you would see other payroll providers. So something to think about when you're proposing options to your clients. And if you go into the personnel management, compensation management, these are very similar than to the standalone HR module. So nothing has actually changed. No tiles to my knowledge have been added or new features have been added. Benefits, this should be deprecated. So there is a new benefits module that was released, which is somewhat different, quite a bit different than the standalone module. So in the F&O HR module for benefits, there's so much more information. There's a lot more enhanceability that has been added by Microsoft. So we'll talk a little bit about that because this is like a whole new module, a separate video. Quite a few videos might be required to actually cover that. So it's not just a one-time thing. So it's basically configuring the whole thing. So that is a new module, benefits management. But the benefits, for instance, this is an old module. So this module was very simple. It was very similar to other modules that were available in Microsoft or in the HR, in the F&O structure. But now they should be removing this, and then you should only be seeing benefits management, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Recruitment management. So one of the other things that you lost, or as Microsoft likes to say, they have gotten rid of the ATS system that they used to advocate while you would request the licenses for HR. So the HR standalone module, for instance, had an ATS system called LinkedIn Talent Hub, and the LinkedIn Talent Hub no longer exists after this merger. So now if you want to have a recruitment by any case and you want to integrate it here, then you need to have a third party provider, and then you do your integrations. There are a lot of them out there, but I really like the LinkedIn Talent Hub. It was easy integration. You click of a button more or less, and then it gets integrated automatically. But now you have to worry about the third party, and then they have to help you integrate the ATS system. So it really depends on the requirements and the reporting and whatnot. But there are some apps out there that you can use as the ATS system and integrate it here, and then this is your workspace. So very similar to the standalone module workspace. So nothing has actually changed here either. So if I actually go into the workers itself, for instance, if I go into the employees and we'll talk a little bit about things that might have changed from the standalone to when the merger happened. So one of the things that I looked at the very first time was the name history. So if you were to change your name at any point, there is a name history that has been captured. So you could see that in this case, it was modified by Claire, and the first name is Ahmed now, and then it's Barnett. So you can actually make it, historical data for yourself from the HR perspective. In terms of the personal information, so if you do show more fields, There's some fields, of course, that no longer are applicable here. So they were actually taken out from the standalone module. One of the things that Microsoft is introducing is the gender, so they will have a bit more drop-down list based on the genders that people like to identify themselves with. So this is something Microsoft is working on. So basically have a bigger drop-down list. Obviously, you can easily customize this as well. Nothing that is too challenging. If you go into the work history and the employment details, there's a lot more information down here. So now the benefits, for instance, has been incorporated in here. That's something that you didn't see in the standalone. The calendar has also been incorporated. So this calendar is being used for leave of absence, for instance. If you want to have a calendar for leave of absence and have that integrated into the organizational hierarchy, so this is how this would work. Payment frequency, of course, is one of the mandatory things that you would need in order to enroll somebody into the benefits. So we'll talk a little bit about that at some point. And the Affordable Act is basically for US. So if you're doing US implementations, then these are more applicable to you. But for me, I personally haven't used this as much because of the Canadian implementations. And financial dimensions, so if you of course want to identify this as a resource for different modules, want to integrate that, then you would be using these financial dimensions, and these are default dimensions for this employee. So every time this resource is used for any projects and whatnot, when you're doing your expenses, these dimensions will come on those lines. Benefit details is also a new tab that was brought in because of the benefit management module, and we'll talk a little bit about that and how this is applicable to the benefits. So with that, I think I'll close our first part of the HR module, and then we'll pick it up in our second part where we go from here.